Hello, what's up? Sir Howard here. Today is our last installment in discussing how to handle anger. Ito na yung ating part 4 where we basically discuss psychological techniques so that we can make anger more manageable. Quick review. The following are the things that we already discussed part 1. I basically talk about the basic nature of anger, kung ano ba yung mga concepts that you need to remember in handling anger. And then part 2, I talk about how to handle anger using cognitive reframing. So kung hindi nyo pa napanood, just watch that part. Part 3, before this video, I discussed how do you do anticipation para mas maging manageable yung anger mo. Okay, so for today, we are going to discuss another technique on how to handle anger, and this will be the last one. Pero as I always say, bago ko i-introduce ulit yung technique that we will use to manage anger, well, let's be realistic, there is no way to totally eliminate anger. Huwag nating gawing goal na hindi tayo magagalit ever in this life, because as long as we are living in this fallen world, there will always be troubles, and those troubles will potentially make us angry. So walang psychological technique in the world na pwede nating asahan na kapag ginawa natin yon, hindi na tayo magagalit. Lagi tayong magagalit. The best we could do is to manage it well. And what do you mean by manage? It means hindi ka agad-agad nagagalit. As James 1:19 is saying, you are slow to anger. It takes a lot before you get really angry. It is a learnable skill. At yun nga yung pinag-uusapan natin so far in this series of videos. How do you manage your anger well so that you become slow to anger? Kasi mas marami kang technique na ginagamit whenever you feel angry, mas nagiging mababa yung intensity ng anger mo, therefore it becomes more manageable. So, the last technique that I'm going to teach you on how to handle anger is what we call assertiveness. Ito yung pangatlong technique na pwede nating gamitin, assertiveness. Assertiveness is saying what you want to say to another person. Now you might ask me, how is that even connected to anger? My willingness to say something, how is that connected to anger? Ganito kasi yan. One of the reasons why a person become very angry is hindi niya masabi yung gusto niyang sabihin to the person. It's a great contributor to anger. You want to say something, you cannot let it out. For some reason, maybe you're scared, maybe you are not in the right situation, maybe because of pride, ayaw mong kausapin yung taong yun. Pero the negative effect is, as long as you keep those words inside you, it may increase the intensity of your anger, hindi mo mailabas. Kaya ang gamot dyan, para yung anger mo hindi ganun katindi, sabihin mo yung gusto mong sabihin. But there's a condition here. If we are going to apply assertiveness, though you say what you want to say, you say it in a calm and non-offending way. Dapat kalmado ka. Dapat yung paraan ng pagkakasabi mo sa ng gusto mong sabihin, it's not something that will further intensify the anger of yourself and the person that you are talking to. Kasi many people today, that's their weakness, no? Akala nila whenever they want to say the truth, they will just say it. Kasi totoo naman daw yung sinasabi nila, but that doesn't work. Kapag sinasabi mo yung isang statement na totoo naman, in a wrong way, you're not calm, you're very offensive, the thing is, the more likely anger will become uncontrollable. The Bible teaches us about this principle in Proverbs 15:1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. You see the contrast there. If you are gentle, ano daw nangyayari? Turns away wrath. In our terminology, anger lessens in intensity, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Kapag ikaw ay pabalang sumagot, napaka-offensive mo magsalita, it increases the intensity of your anger. Okay? So again, this is a very clear warning for us na dapat whenever we want to say something, even if it is true, even if we make sense, even if we are in the right side, ibig sabihin tama yung mga sasabihin natin, tayo yung tama, yung pagsasabihan natin yung mali, kailangan hindi tayo harsh. Kasi pag matigas ang ulo natin, when we are harsh, when we use harsh words, again, going back to Proverbs 15:1, harsh words can make the other angry. 'Di ba? O kasi sinisigawan mo, tumataas yung boses mo, nagmumura ka na, imbis na maayos yung problema, that person becomes more angry, then that person no longer listens to the things that you want to say, which defeats the purpose of assertiveness. At alam nyo ba, kahit yung harsh words na yan, may epekto rin yan sa'yo. 'Di ba ikaw yung galit, ikaw yung nagpipigil, ikaw yung nag-assertiveness. But if you say those words in a harsh way, that can also backfire on you. It will further intensify your anger. You might ask me, how does that even happen? Kasi halimbawa, example, no? Meron kang pagsasabihan ng sama ng loob mo, galit ka sa taong yon. But you say it in a harsh way. Mataas ang boses mo, medyo nagmumura ka, no? So what happens is, when you sense that your voice is getting louder, and when you hear your own words such as your curses, yung mga mura mo, those are enough signals to further intensify your own anger. So dahil nasisense mo na mataas ang boses mo, nasisense mo yung mga mura mo, lalong tumitindi yung anger sa loob mo. In psychology, we call that you further reinforce your anger. And then double black eye yan, hindi lang ikaw yung tumataas yung galit because you are aiming those things towards another person, that person also becomes angry. Eh di pareho na kayong galit. At ang taong parehong galit, malabo talaga na mag-communicate yan. Bad news, that's what you need. Communication between two people is one of the things that you need for you to effectively resolve anger. Kaya hindi tayo talaga dapat gumagamit ng mga harsh words whenever we communicate our anger to someone. Pwede naman tayong mag-communicate ng maayos, no, na kahit galit ka, gentle pa rin yung pagkakasabi mo ng galit ka. Again, in another passage, this one is in Ephesians, you need to speak the truth in love. Totoo naman na mali siya. Totoo naman na meron siyang mga bagay na dapat gawin na dapat na nang itigil para hindi ka magalit, but you say that in a nice way. And again, what would help us achieve that? How do you say it in a nice way? That's what we are talking about in this video. We use assertiveness. Assertiveness is making another person know that you are getting angry or you are currently angry. Yan yung ibig sabihin ng assertiveness. Gusto mong malaman ng isang tao na ikaw ay malapit ng magalit or galit ka na. And why do you do that? Meron niyang goal. As you can see in the slide, the goal here is adjustment of that person's behavior. Gusto mong itigil niya yung ginagawa niya. Because that is the only way that will pacify your anger. Sabihin mo yung gusto mong sabihin, pero yung sinabi mo, those words will make that person adjust his or her behavior, which will make your anger more manageable. So yan yung ibig sabihin ng assertiveness. But how do you apply assertiveness? Meron tayong sinusunod na outline. If you want to make an assertive statement to another person, just remember the 3 words: describe, explain, and instruct. So gawan natin ng acronym: describe, explain, and instruct. They. Right? So ano bang ibig sabihin ng they na yan? No? Ano bang ginagawa sa describe? When you say describe, ibig sabihin yan, you are telling the person specifically what makes you angry. What makes you angry? I-describe mo sa kanya kung ano yung currently na nangyayari that is making you angry. And then for the explain part, you explain to that person why it makes you angry. Hindi lang sapat na sinasabi mo na ito yung nangyayari. You also need to explain why, given what's happening here, why or how this thing is making you angry. Yun yung explain. And then, after you explain why that something is making you angry, now you move on to instruct. Ano ngayon ang dapat gagawin ng tao na sinasabihan mo so that that person can adjust and so lessen the intensity of your anger. Alright? Again, describe, explain, instruct. Describe is what, explain is why, instruct is what should that person do. And by the way, please make sure that when you instruct a person na gumawa ng isang behavior para mabawasan yung galit mo, make sure it's doable. Huwag ka naman magbibigay ng instruction na hindi naman siya doable, no? Imposibleng mangyari. But anyway, later as we go along, I'm going to give you examples on how this work. And one more thing I want to emphasize here, when do you use assertiveness? Kailan ba, in what phase of the angry situation are you supposed to use assertiveness? Let me demonstrate. Ginagamit yung assertiveness, for example, if you are in this situation. Merong nangyari in the environment, it makes you angry. Right? Event happened, your mind sensed what happened, now you're angry. Question, where do you use assertiveness? You use assertiveness by first going away from the event. Aalis ka muna doon sa angry event like that, at doon mo ngayon i-compose yung assertiveness words mo. That's very important, compose. Kino-compose ang assertiveness. Kaya you cannot practice assertiveness while you are in the event that makes you angry. You need to detach from that event so that you can compose the words you're going to say using the technique of assertiveness. And then, after mo i-compose yung technique or after mo i-compose yung mga sasabihin mo dito sa assertiveness, what do? That's the time that you return to the event and then you say what you composed in your assertiveness statement. So, babalik ka na ngayon sa event para masolusyonan yung iyong problema on anger. Okay? Now, how assertiveness diffuses anger? Why does it work? Anong meron sa assertiveness that whenever you do it, more likely it makes your anger less intensified, therefore more manageable? We need to understand this, no? Ganito ang nangyayari dyan in a typical angry event. Again, something bad happens that you hate, your mind senses that, automatic thoughts, automatic cognition, you feel angry. And then, because you are so angry, our tendency is to react through our actions and words. Yan ang mali. This is what gives us trouble. When we begin to do things or say words in connection to our anger, when our anger is the one that is determining the things that we do and the words that we say, dyan tayo napapahamak. In fact, going back to my previous examples, I think yan yung nangyari sa mga reports na yan, di ba? Sa mga incidents na yan. For this guy, why did he gun down two human beings? Because that action was dictated, was shaped by the angry emotion. O eto, bakit niya binaril yung nakaaway niyang nagbibisikleta? Again, that behavior came from, dictated by, shaped by the high intensity of anger. Kaya dangerous talaga yan. Kapag yung anger mo mataas, it's so scary to do certain things or to say certain words at that state of mind na masyadong mataas ang iyong anger. So dito ngayon papasok yung assertiveness. How do you think assertiveness solves that problem? Well, when you practice assertiveness, when you go away from the angry situation and you begin to compose the words that you're going to say later, what happens is you are forcing yourself to be more rational. Kasi nagko-compose ka, iniisip mo yung mga words na sasabihin mo. Iniisip mo yung sasabihin mo under describe, under explain, under instruct. That thinking in itself will activate what? The upper part of the brain, which is what we want every time we feel angry. Remember emotional hijacking, di ba? O, nagsisimula yan sa lower part of the brain. Something happened, lower part of the brain. If you don't do anything that makes the upper region of the brain work, what happens? Those energies from anger take over the upper part of the brain. We call this emotional hijack. Now you don't know what you're saying. Now you don't know what you're doing. In Filipino experience, yun yung tinatawag nilang nagdilim ang paningin mo. Hindi mo na alam yung ginawa mo sa sobrang galit mo. That's emotional hijack. But then again, assertiveness prevents that from happening. In what way? Because when you practice assertiveness, you are making the upper part of your brain work, which will shield it from the negative influences of angry energies in the lower brain. Let me give you some examples on how to use assertiveness. Let's say, given this scenario, nasa kwarto ka, tapos yung kapitbahay nyo nagpapatunog ng malakas na music. Problem, you cannot concentrate. Problem, tomorrow is your exam. So you really need to be assertive that your neighbor should turn down the volume of the radio. So naiinis ka, nagagalit ka in that situation, right? So what do you do before you go to your neighbor? You first compose the DEI. Ayan, saan yun? Babalik ulit tayo doon sa DEI. Ayan. So again this happens before you approach yung nagpapatunog ng malakas na radio. Ayan, eto muna. Siguro kung may notebook ka, isulat mo. But if you have good memory, you can just compose this inside your head. But regardless, you begin to think what makes you angry, why it makes you angry, and what he or she can do so that your anger will subside. So that's what you do. After you compose the describe, explain, instruct, outline, that's the time that you go next door and then kato ka doon sa pintuan ng iyong kapitbahay na malapit sa kwarto mo. That's why you hear the loud music. Now you tell them the DEI, the describe, explain, and instruct. So for example, sabihin mo sa kapitbahay mo, I find your music too loud. You see, you're describing the situation. And then, anong sinabi? Sa explain? Anong sasabihin mo sa explain? When your music is too loud, I cannot concentrate with what I do. You see? Cause and effect yan. Merong nagko-cause ng effect. The cause is the describe. And after describing, how does that affect you? That makes you angry. Now, you cannot concentrate with your lessons, no? And then, instruct. Anong gagawin sa instruct? Ano ngayon ang pwede niyang gawin para mabawas-bawasan yung nararamdaman mong galit? So, if it's okay with you, could you please turn it a little bit down? You see? So, those three outlines will form your assertiveness statement to that person. I find your music too loud. When your music is too loud, I cannot concentrate with what I do. Tomorrow is my exam. And then, instruct. Ano ang dapat niyang gawin para hindi ka na magalit? Turn the radio a little bit down. O, diba? Naging assertive ka. Example number 2, let's say in an office place, you were having a meeting. It's a big meeting where you are sharing ideas. The problem was, your office mate got the idea that you have, right? Or maybe, got the idea that you have, and then there was a very quick commotion within the meeting. Parang dinenay ng office mate mo na sa'yo yung idea, so medyo nagkasagutan kayo. Okay, now, it makes you angry. Right? Anong gagawin mo? After the meeting, pahinga ka muna, alis ka muna sa situation, and then you begin to compose, describe, explain, instruct. That will activate the upper part of your brain para makakatulong din yon sa pagpapakalma sa sarili mo. And then, after you compose the DEI outline, this is the time that you approach the person that you had an encounter with a while ago. So what do? Sabihin mo na kaagad yung describe, explain, instruct. You did not talk to me nicely a while ago during the meeting. You see, you are describing the situation. And then what happens? Explain. I felt offended. I felt bad. I felt my opinion was not important. So that's the effect. What's the cause? The describe. Yan yung cause. Yan yung nangyari. Ano yung effect? Nagalit ka. Bakit ka nagalit? Ayan na. You felt offended. You felt bad. You felt your opinion was not important. So ano ngayon? Anong kailangan gawin ng taong kausap mo to pacify your anger? Instruct. You say something like this. Next time, can my opinion be heard or considered? Or next time, can you please talk to me more nicely? Yun yung ibig sabihin ng instruct. Alright? So don't forget that, no? DEI. Something happens in your environment, it made you angry. Huwag mo munang kausapin yung taong yon kasi mataas ang emotion of anger mo. You don't like your words and your actions coming from that strong emotion. So what do? Detach from the situation and begin composing the DEI. And when you're ready, you go back to that person and then you assert what you felt. Pero meron pa akong ibang mga idadagdag na guidelines. Some other guidelines to remember, class, no? In using assertiveness technique. Number 1, take time to compose the words. Kaya nga sabi ko kanina, ang step 1 lagi is to detach yourself from the situation that got you angry or from the person who makes you angry. And then once you are already away from the situation or from the person, that's the time you make your upper brain work by drafting the outline of DEI. Describe, explain, and instruct. Also, tatandaan nyo, kapag kinakausap nyo na yung tao, sasabihin nyo na yung DEI as calm as possible. That's the rule. Huwag kang sisigaw, huwag kang magmumura, huwag kang magtataas ng boses. You say these things in a calm tone. Because again, if you don't follow this, double black eye. Yourself will sense your higher pitch of voice. That will further reinforce your anger. For the person, nakausap mo naman, ang epekto niyan sa kanya, that person becomes defensive. That person may even also become angry. So you're angry, she's angry, there's no point resolving this. So, kalmado lang dapat ang pagkakasabi mo. Number 3, please make use a lot of I statements when you begin to recite your DEI. Like for example, going back, no? Doon sa aking slide, if you notice, I rarely use the word you. Karamihan ng mga pronouns ko dito, I. You are focusing on you. You are the one feeling anger. You are the one feeling certain things. Kaya puro I dyan eh. Diba? Wag na wag mong papalitan yung I ng you. Kasi pag ginawa mong you, going back to the slide, no? Sambawa, you did not talk to me nicely a while ago during the meeting. You are bad. You are also insensitive. You fail to value the contributions of people around you. O pag ginagamitan mo siya ng you, parang tinuturo mo siya verbally, tendency that person becomes defensive. Maglalagay ngayon siya ng matataas na wall kasi yung mind niya na sense na inaatake mo siya. So that's our natural tendency, no, of our psyche when it is being attacked. It will create defense mechanisms. We are going to create walls, and that's not good for anger management, for anger resolution, because two people involved will no longer talk. Kaya dapat mag-focus ka lang talaga sa sarili mo whenever you are communicating your assertiveness statement. Also, please make sure to remember that timing is also important. Okay? Timing is also important. Huwag kang magpa-practice ng assertiveness training nang wala ka sa tiyempo. Alright? As much as possible, yun yung ibig sabihin ng AMAP, as much as possible, please do it privately. Okay? Privately. So nakapag-compose ka na ng DEI, now it's time for you to communicate with that person. Again, timing and in private. So sabihin mo sa taong yun, can I talk to you later? Or can I talk to you after work? Or while we are having coffee? I need to say something to you. Yan. Ta-timing ka. wag kang mag-assertiveness strategy kapag yung kausap mo maraming ginagawa or mainit ang ulo or alam mong nagkakaroon na nga siya ng bad day tapos mag-assertiveness ka pa. That will be very insensitive. Timing is also very important. In fact, whether your assertiveness technique will work or not highly depends on how good you are in timing when you say your assertiveness statement. Number 4, please stick to the present issue. Let me re-emphasize this, present issue lang. Ibig sabihin, kapag nag-assertiveness ka, wag mo nang isama yung mga issue in the past, lalo na yung mga na-resolve na, lalo na yung mga napag-usapan na, because that's the tendency of many people. Whenever they say their assertiveness statement, it's not centered on what happened now that made you angry. Marami mga tao, maghuhukay pa ng mga other issues from the past na na-resolve na just to give further support to the things that they're saying in the assertiveness statement. Oh, hindi maganda yon. Yung sasabihin mo, oh, ganyan ka naman lagi eh. Di ba dati rin ganyan ka? Di ba dati rin ginawa mo yan? The more you go back to the past and you place those things right now, the more that person na kinakausap mo becomes defensive. Kasi that's a very offensive move, no? Yung hahanap ka ng issues in the past, ibabalik mo, tapos ipapatama mo doon sa taong kinakausap mo, that will make the other person defensive. So please, kung ano lang yung nagpagalit sa iyo right now, yun lang dapat ang laman ng describe mo at saka ng explanation. Huwag na magsasabi ng mga bagay in the past na na-resolve na. And last one, number 5, this is also very important. You also reflect sa sarili mo if you are more comfortable delivering your assertiveness statement in a written form or in verbal form. Iba-iba kasi ang tao dyan, no? Some people more comfortable with written form. They think better. They can communicate better when they write or when they type what they want to say. Pero may mga tao naman mas gusto nila na verbal sila. Talagang they want to personally say what they want to say. So again, that's up to you. Reflect which one do you think you are more comfortable with in using assertiveness. Are you going to write down your statement or simply say your statement? Very common question students ask me in connection to assertiveness. Sir, paano kung halimbawa hindi nag-work yung assertiveness ko? After I gave that person the instruction, that person is not willing to listen. And that may happen. Although, sinasabi ko nga dito sa slide, that's only a small chance. More than 50% of the time, if you do assertiveness the right way, you are using gentle tone of voice, malumanay ka sa pagsasabi, magwo-work yan eh. Makikinig yung tao sa instruction mo para hindi ka na masyadong magalit. So, pero again, we cannot deny that sometimes, even if you are so assertive, even if you are so gentle, that person that you're talking to, mukhang hindi niya talaga babaguhin yung behavior niya to deal with your anger. In those situations, just remember the following things. Number 1, at least you have a consolation prize. Ano yung consolation prize mo? At least you were able to express what you want to express. From inside, you're able to express it outside through your words or through your letter. And that is already a great achievement or a great help to lessen the intensity of your anger. Basta mapalabas mo lang in words or in writing yung gusto mong sabihin, malaki na ang mababawas sa iyong level of anger. Number 2, kung hindi nakinig sa instruction mo yung kinakausap mo using assertiveness, then you may use other strategies like walking out. Talagang ayaw makinig, iinit lang nang iinit yung ulo mo. So, alis ka na lang muna sa situation, hinga ka muna, mag-isip ka muna, and then you go back and try to resolve the problem again. Or we can again go back to our previous discussions. Pwede ka rin gumamit ng mga trigger words. We discussed that in the last video, or even imagery. Isip ka ng mga episodes, no, ng mga picture in your heads where you see yourself very relaxed. Maybe you are sitting by the beach. Maybe you see yourself having a good night's sleep. Maybe you are seeing yourself having a vacation. that would help big time in activating the upper part of the brain and suppress or to shield itself from the energy coming from the lower part of the brain. Okay, yan yung silbi ng imagery. And of course, wag nating i-underestimate yung power of prayer. Let's also pray for our ability to control what we are currently feeling, na sana hindi na sumabog, sana hindi na lumala. Don't underestimate the power of prayer, because studies show that many people who pray, actually, they are in good standing. They have better skills in managing their emotions. Hindi lang anger, but all the other negative emotions. When you pray about it, it helps big time in lessening the intensity of those emotions. Alright? Now, let me just give you some exercises and these exercises will give you an opportunity to apply assertiveness. So, assignment nyo na lang to, no? After the video, balikan nyo yung mga parts na to, and then gawa kayo ng outline of describe, explain, and instruct given the following situations. Halimbawa, your office mate was late in a very important meeting that you are leading. So, napahiya ka, no? Tapos siguro maraming dapat responsibility yung office mate na yan na hindi nagawa kasi nga late siya sa meeting nyo. So, you want to be assertive to this office mate. Ano ang gagawin mo? You draft what you're going to say under describe, under explain, and under instruct. Next, you feel that your friend is taking you for granted. Nakakainit din naman talaga ng ulo yan, no? Yung feeling mo, hindi ka naman binavalue ng best friend mo. Tapos best friend mo po naman yon, right? So, what are you going to say to that person who takes you for granted? DEI. Describe, explain, instruct in your own time. And then here's another one. Your office mate gave you a wrong information which made you commit a mistake in the office. Talk to your office mate. Nakakainit din ng ulo yan. Nagbigay yung office mate mo ng impormasyon. Mali pala yung impormasyon. And because that information is wrong, what happens? That pushed you to do decisions that are also wrong. Nakakagalit talaga yan. But you want to be assertive to this office mate that you have. What are you going to say in your own time? Please draft your D, describe, E, explain, and I, instruct. So as we close this series on anger, balikan lang natin yung tatlong techniques that I taught you on how to lessen the intensity of your anger. We have cognitive reframing, we have anticipation, and we have assertiveness. Actually, I don't like you to just remember these three techniques separately, but I want you to get the point how these three techniques work. How these three techniques contribute to the lowering of the intensity of one's anger. Alam nyo kung ano yung common denominator among these three techniques? All these three are designed to make the upper part of the brain work while we are feeling angry. Remember, the upper part of the brain, if it is superior than the lower part of the brain, then we will have good control, great control of emotions that we are feeling coming from the lower part of the brain. And one way to make the upper part of the brain work is pag-isipin mo yan. Make the upper part of the brain work. And how do you make the upper part of the brain work? Yun na nga, going back to my three examples. You do cognitive reframing, you do anticipation, you do assertiveness. Sorry about this. This should be number 3. Yan yung common denominator ng numbers 1, 2, and 3. All these techniques will make the upper part of the brain work, which is the key to really effectively handling our anger. The more you think, the less you get angry. This is the key to manage anger. Yan lang naman yung pinaka-theme of our series about anger. If you want to be less angry, you need to be more rational. You need to make your upper part of the brain work harder. Okay? So that officially ends our series on anger. If you have any questions about any of the videos that I released, then don't hesitate to just comment down below and I'm going to answer those questions about how to handle your anger more effectively. Thank you for listening, everyone. I'll see you next time. Sir Howard here. God bless. Bye-bye.